The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It took the Harper government only 3 months to get the Americans to back down and pay back and stop collecting illegal tariffs on softwood. When this Prime Minister took office, the Americans smelled weakness, and they slapped those tariffs right back on, and you know what? He backed down. The Harper government got an exemption to Buy America laws, and within months of this Prime Minister taking office, the Americans slapped it right back on again, and he backed down again. He's now even saying he can't protect our borders against illegal border crossing without the permission of the United States President. Will he announce resolutions to these problems tomorrow, or will he just back down again?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
When Canadians face one of the most significant threats to our jobs, to our growth, to our prosperity, in the threat of cancellation of NAFTA, the recommendation from Mr. Harper, the recommendation from the Conservatives, oh, you need to capitulate. But that's not what Canadians did. That's not what this government did. We stood strongly. We got them to lift tariffs on steel and aluminum. We renegotiated NAFTA in our favor. We continue to stand up for Canadians, Canadian workers right across the country. We will take no lessons in capitulation to Americans from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker.
Right. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
On a prévu que le Premier ministre allait capituler.
We expected the Prime Minister to capitulate, and that's what he did. He signed an agreement allowing Americans to continue with illegal tariffs on our softwood lumber, which hurts our forestry workers. He capitulated again with Buy America. And Mexico has an exemption, whereas Canada doesn't. And he said we need permission from the Americans to protect our border, something we never needed before. Will he finally get up and stand up for Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We all remember that when Canadians were facing the biggest threat to our economy, which was the idea that President Trump was going to cancel NAFTA. We held on. We pushed back against the Americans in spite of the fact that Mr. Harper and the Conservatives were encouraging us to give in, to not bother Mr. Trump and accept what he was offering. We stood up for Canadian workers, and we saw tariffs on steel and aluminum removed, and we were able to negotiate in our favor.
Monsieur le Président, c'est lui qui accepte.
But, Mr. Speaker, he's the one who accepted all Mr. Trump's demands. Mr. Trump and the Mexicans signed an agreement and presented it to the Prime Minister, who accepted it without any changes, including tariffs on our forestry products. Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives were in power, we were able to solve the problem in 3 months. It's been 8 years now that they haven't been able to do so. Yes or no? Will he finally be able to get done in 8 years what it took 3 months for the Conservatives to do? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I understand to what point the Conservatives need to make partisan attacks. But they're not going to rewrite history. We were able to renegotiate NAFTA to defend Canada's cultural industry, to defend Canadian workers, to defend our dairy industry and supply management. We've defended workers' interests in Canada. We will continue to do so. While the Conservatives were encouraging us to give in, we stood up for Canadians, and that's what we're going to continue to do in partnership with the Americans. And the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The former Conservative government obtained an exemption from Buy American policies during the Obama years. The Americans reapplied them once this Prime Minister came to power. In the agreement he signed, he allowed Buy America to become bigger and to affect the federal government's projects, not just smaller state projects. The Mexicans obtained an exemption. Prime Minister Harper was able to obtain it. The Mexicans were able to obtain it. Will this Prime Minister get an exemption from Buy America tomorrow? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we saw to what point the Americans wanted to create an electric car industry by excluding Canada. However, the work that we did with our partners in the United States allowed us to highlight how integrated we are on both sides of the border. For instance, when it comes to building cars, we were able to get an exemption in that industry. So we're going to continue to work hand in hand with our American partners, which will lead to good jobs for Canadians, economic growth, and productive competition with the rest of the world. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How badly he's capitulated on Buy America. Get this straight. Harper got an exemption to Buy America in the Obama era to protect our construction workers and their paychecks. This Prime Minister allowed Trump to slap Buy America on, and then he signed a deal that would allow the expansion of Buy America from just being at the state level to the federal level. And now the Mexicans have an exemption from Buy America, and we don't. This is a catastrophic failure for our construction workers as a result of this Prime Minister's weakness. Will he get a deal to end Buy America for Canadians tomorrow?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The issue of protecting Canadian jobs and ensuring growth for the future is a deeply serious issue that must be taken seriously, which is why you really shouldn't be just making stuff up, as the Leader of the Opposition is. The fact of the matter is we will continue to stand up for Canadian jobs, work closely with the Americans on making sure we're competitive with the world. This is the approach that we've always taken with our partners to the south. We will continue to take this seriously instead of looking for, venal partisan advantage.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that Buy America remains in place today on Canada and that it has been expanded under this Prime Minister to include the federal government, something that was specifically exempted from the earlier NAFTA. But Trump demanded it, and this Prime Minister was in the habit of backing down to everything Trump demanded. Now, we thought that when Trump was gone, that he was going to have an easier time, but now Biden is pushing him around. Mr. Speaker, putting partisanship aside, I think we as Conservatives can all agree we don't like any Prime Minister, including a Liberal Prime Minister, to be pushed around like this by an American president. Will he end it tomorrow?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have consistently stood up for Canadians, whether it was Canadian auto workers, Canadian steel workers, whether it was making sure we renegotiated NAFTA in strong ways, or whether we stood up for inclusion of Canadian electric vehicles production in the new IRA. We will continue to work constructively with our partners to the south. We will continue to defend Canadian interests. We will continue to grow our economies together at a time where the world needs a North America to be working together as allies to project our success and our values to the world. That's what we will do while he plays partisan games.